Welcome, fellow Toastmasters and guests. This meeting of online presenters has now begun. Guests, please note that in order to be a member of our club, you must be a current or former active member of Toastmasters International and have completed at least 6 Toastmasters official speeches. Or alternatively, if you have substantial relevant presentation experience, you may apply for membership after demonstrating your abilities in a 2 to 3 minute speech delivered during one of our club meetings. All requests for membership are subject to approval by the members of our club. If you have not already done so, please change your panel to ensure it shows your name and role if you have one. Right-click and select Rename to do so. We have members and guests from many countries throughout the world. Thus, as a professional organization, we ask that you please be aware of language or word usage that may be considered offensive or otherwise insensitive due to cultural differences. Please note that we will be recording the meeting. Your video or audio contribution may be used for club marketing purposes. Also, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. Please welcome our club president, DTM, Andrew Byrne.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. The title of my presentation is Choice. It's in the, excuse
Andy,
me?
you're not speaking yet. You're just giving your introduction as president.
Ah, okay, I thought she was saying, all right, never mind about that. Welcome everyone to our meeting. This is your president speaking. We are having a wonderful meeting. There's a little bit of organizational situations that were taken care of at the pre-meeting, which hopefully would have been taken care of earlier, but we're still doing that. Our goal is so that we are completely organized prior to the meeting start. We're still working on that to get it done right. From the presidency of this club, I want to welcome any guests, certainly all the members, thank all those members who have paid their dues and are now up to date. It gets really crazy this time of year, and some more areas than other. Karen, one of our members, is in the southwest part of Florida, and they got a higher burden of Hurricane Ian than other parts of Florida. So those individuals that are in the Naples area, Sarasota, are recovering for that, and our hearts go out to them. It makes it a little bit more challenging for many people. We had an executive club meeting of the officers yesterday. It was exciting, it was thorough, and we covered many areas. One of the things, if Sarah's here, I see her, I'd like her to talk about some of the issues that we raised that affect all the members in terms of budgetary items. So I'll give 2 minutes of my time to Sarah, and if you can talk about the budget and items that we talked about and spending the club members' money. Afterwards, the club can vote on whether to continue along those lines or not. So Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. The things that we talked about as far as to develop some type of budget that we can use to kind of go by. We have some items that have been done in the past, and we're hoping, or it's open for the members to decide whether or not we will do it again. The most important thing that's coming up right now is our Toastmaster account. It's due toward the end of this month. I think it's around the 25th or something like that. And it's $100, so we'll need the approval of the club to go ahead and pay that. We also have a Zoom account, which is roughly $199, a Prezi account, $191.85. And then all through the year, we have Stripe fees, and we kind of estimated those to be at around $100. I estimated that our operating expenses, including $200 that we're just kind of holding out in case we have some marketing expenses. So that total would be $830.85. What the revenue that we got so far, we received $1,495 gross from our member dues. We're estimating that by the end of the term, May 30th or June 30th, we should have received $3,310 based on the total members that we have now, those that are still maybe renewing, and any new members that we may get in the future. As far as the annual budget so far, the revenue, we're expecting to be $3,360. The dues expense to pay for those dues back to Toastmasters, $2,760, and then those operating expenses, $830.85. Back to you, Mr. President.
Okay.
Thank you very much about that. One of the things that I do is look at how we're doing with the Toastmasters metrics. As far as that goes, we are at 3 points. Our goal, certainly by the end of the second quarter, which is December 31st, is to be closer to 9 or 10 points. And I've sent out, you can all look at it through the dashboard, and the dashboard will identify what the criteria or metrics that Toastmaster looks at and how we're doing on those metrics. Something to think about, because if you don't know where you're shooting for, what your goals are, then you don't know how you're going. David's also will send out a memo from the Vice President of Education of what programs, special programs are coming up in the next few weeks, to keep yourself circling those dates and make sure that you've saved those dates coming to those meetings. So I'll leave you at that, and I turn it back to our Toastmaster of the day.
Well, can I say just a quick word about we do have a workshop scheduled for the 24th. So this is going to be sort of a sequel to the one we just did on the future of online Toastmasters. There was this whole other conversation that came up a lot during that, which was, what about the hybrid club format? What about meeting contests, particularly, are moving to being either done entirely online or being done in a hybrid format? And I've asked Graham to help with this because he has a lot of experience with the hybrid meeting setup. I have some too. I definitely have experience with how to do it wrong, but we have joining us as one of the guest speakers for that event, Alexandra Matt, who was the second place in the World Champion of Public Speaking. And he was the person who was dialing in remote, who was coming in remote while other speakers were on the stage. So we're going to have him give a little presentation about how you can be the dynamic speaker, how you can make a strong impression, even when there are other people in the room and you're coming in remotely. Interesting dimension of that. There may actually have been an advantage for the people who are doing it remotely, because the people who are on stage apparently had to work with a fixed camera. So the camera couldn't pan to follow them. They didn't necessarily have as much movement, freedom to move around the stage as you might think. And so there were trade-offs to doing it either way. But at any rate, I think it's going to be fascinating to hear from Alexandra. I've had a chance to talk with him a little bit about his experience, and we're going to get the full experience on the 24th. And we definitely want to invite guests to that, because this is a recruiting opportunity for the club, an opportunity to show that we're at the center of the issues that matter to other Toastmasters. Let's bring them in here and let's show them, give them a strong impression. So invite your friends. And actually, on the budget issue, should we take a vote on the budget as proposed?
Yes, we can do that. Since it's being presented as a committee recommendations, it doesn't need a second, it just needs a vote.
Do we have a quorum?
That's a good question.
Probably.
Right now, we have 13 participants, with the fact that we have 25 members that are paid up at this moment in time.
Yes,
That's
we
a
do.
quorum.
We have a quorum.
Quorum. So
Yes.
the motion before the club is, do we spend the money as discussed and described by Sarah? All those, anyone have any questions about that?
I believe the motion should be that the budget as presented be adopted, and I would so move, Mr. President.
It's the question is what is being adopted. So I just wanted to clarify that what's being adopted is the budget recommendations from Sarah and her report, so that we're all clear on that. Okay. With that being said, is there anyone opposed to that recommendation? If not hearing anything, I vote that I recognize that this motion is carried in a mutually consented format from the club, and it's in that context that the motion passes. Okay, are there any other motions that I want to hear? Okay. So for the minutes, Ms. Secretary, you can put down that the club discussed the budget and has moved forward on allocating that amount as described by Sarah. And it was passed in today's vote. Okay, moving along. It's now time to turn it back to our Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you, our current president, distinguished Toastmaster Andrew Byrne. Bill Gates once said, "I will always choose a lazy person to do a difficult job because he will find a way to do it, or the easiest way to do it." Personally, I don't believe that there's any such thing as lazy. Sometimes you have to be in battery saving mode. I mean, after all, with all the things that we have to do, Toastmastering atop family, atop responsibilities, atop making money, when or how will you ever find the time? Well, if you look behind me, the joy of the online space is that here are some quick tips that you can look at every time you see me to figure out how to not work harder, but smarter, and give yourself the needed rest that you need to replenish. Evaluation is one of the cornerstones of the Toastmasters experience, and in the online space, and the beauty of online presenters is that we have a myriad of evaluating techniques. As such, we do have varying roles, and I would like to call, so before I get there is no tip of the day, so I will give everybody a quick tip. Best tip I've ever learned: work smarter, not harder. Visualize your goal and the path will come after. Might not work for everybody, but I found that tip works for me. Back to our evaluators. So for our first evaluator, I would like to call our timer, Lou Brown, to explain his role.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. As timer, I'm going to be timing everything here. Speeches and table topics and evaluations all have different timing parameters. Is anyone here not a Toastmaster? Please raise your hand. With that said, I will dispense with telling you what those timing parameters are because we all know. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
I love it. If we already know, see, already putting in practice, we're gonna work smarter, not harder, and save ourselves some time. Next, the R counter, right? Our R counter / grammarian. Can you explain your role?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. As our counter, I will be listening tonight in speeches and all of the speaking tonight for any filler words, so, and that are just there to fill in space and maybe detracting from what are you trying to say. I will also try to be concise as I talk about the word of the day. The word of the day is concise. It's an adjective, and the definition is giving a lot of information in a few words. So I'll be listening out for how many times we use the word concise, and also for other words that may add to the speeches as we go along. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Sarah, for that concise definition of your concise role as a counter. And Marion, we have an online space. It's not the same as it is when we're in person. And we get somebody to tell us if our background works or not, or if we were making that face, or if while I was looking at myself in the camera to make sure I wasn't making that face, I slipped. Our watcher, could you tell us about your role? I'm not seeing the watcher, or is the watcher just not on mute?
It's Natasha.
Natasha.
You're still muted.
Oh dear. The watcher. Please forgive me for laughing. I'm laughing at myself.
Well, you know, for watcher, doing it in mime is perfectly valid, so.
Thank you all. Thank you, Madam Tabletop Toastmaster of the evening. As watcher, I will be watching for your backgrounds. I will look for smiles, and I will also take a few moments to make sure you are not sleeping. So, but seriously, I am going to be watching just to ensure that you are following proper etiquette for online presenters. Thank you. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster of the evening.
Thank you, Natasha. I don't have to do my trapped in a box, but to help her out while we're watching. Remember, we have emojis and we want to applaud and get our watcher is watching you. Next, I would like to call our chat monitor to let us know what they will be monitoring.
Thank you, Toastmaster of the day. I will be the chat monitor. I'll also be the vote counter, which also happens through the chat. You know, as chat monitor, I'll just be watching what's going on in the chat, particularly whether anything is going off the rails in the chat. That if people are saying that they can't hear, if they can't see, that something else is going technically wrong or socially wrong or any other kind of wrong, I'll try and alert the Toastmaster of the day that things are going haywire. Otherwise, just watch for interesting or amusing things that might be shared there, helpful links that you might want to look up after the meeting, and I'll give a little report at the end. For the vote counter role, I will post a link in the chat, which will allow you to cast your vote. And by the way, guests are welcome to vote as well. So that will be for our best speaker of the day, best table topics of the day, and best evaluator. Topics mass, tabletop. Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you. Toastmaster David, it's a good thing we don't have a sergeant. A lot of us would have a lot of fines to pay today. Another example of a concise role and working smarter, not harder. After all, a Toastmaster wears many hats. If you have to be in the chat anyway to vote the count or count the vote, might as well just monitor the chat while you're there. Up next, we have one of the segments that all Toastmasters look forward to. Are you intrigued? Are you ready? Remember, we're gonna use our emojis. We are gonna throw up our hands or give applause as our speakers take the virtual space. First, we will be having Toastmaster Antoinette Trim doing her Visionary Communications Level 1, Mastering Fundamental Evaluation and Feedback. Now, this is the second speech, and her title is How to Remember Things That You Learned. How to Remember Things That You Learned, Toastmaster Antoinette Trim.
Good evening to everyone, especially to Toastmaster of the day and all my fellow Toastmasters. Time for some honesty here. Who has ever told themselves that they have a bad memory? I am sure some of us can identify with that. In the past, I always had extreme difficulty in finding out where did I place my car keys, especially on mornings when I'm rushing to work. I guess we can all relate to that. But do you know, we defeat ourselves when we keep saying that we have a bad memory. Rather, you have an untrained memory. Over the years, I have developed various techniques and strategies which have been working for me. In primary school, I remember the days of singing 30 days had September, April, June, and November. All the rest has 31 except February, which was 28 days and 29 days in every leap year. That was a song for us as children to remember how many days in particular months of the year. So now that I'm grown, someone may ask me, how many days in May again? And I'll quickly run through the song in my mind and I say, 31. In the article titled, Want to Remember Something, you better put it in a song, which was dated in October 2017. It stated that music helps us remember things better because of the chunking process. Chunking is when we take individual pieces of information and group them together in larger units. Our short-term memory can only remember 7 items or 7 units at any one particular time. And in the singing of the alphabet of LMNOP can be learned as one entire chunk of information. I would like to now go on to learning by association, which is very popular among adults and is also a useful technique for adults. Learning ASL or American Sign Language for me is a journey, is not a destination. So over a period of time, I will associate certain signs with something that is physical. So the sign for sun is this. And it can also be used for shine or bright. So anytime I come up with the word, or I see the word shine or bright, I always remember sun. And association helps me to, or helps us as adults to learn quickly and remember easily. In an article titled Repetition and Association in Learning by Reed in September 2012, further went on to state that when a person can associate 2 things in order to remember, it is a great time saving in having to learn a number of repetitions. The best way, which is my 3rd point, to remember or learn new things is through practice. I dare say many of us learn to drive by having hands-on or obtaining hands-on experience. Because if we have the manual and we read it from cover to cover and we memorize it, and then decided to go inside the vehicle to learn to drive or to start to drive, that will be a recipe for disaster. In essence, why not master your memory today? Do you want to take control of your mind to remember anything? Why not challenge yourselves with the techniques outlined above? You will notice you do not really have a bad memory, but that memory will be converted to a trained one. Back to you, Toastmaster of the day, Joni.
Thank you, Toastmaster Antoinette. I remember so fondly that nursery rhyme, and I still do it, just like if I need to know where letters are. LMNOP, forever in our hearts. Next to the virtual lectern, we will be having another speech. Now, you've seen him before as president, and he was so raring to go that he had on his speaker hat instead of his presidential hat and had to take it off. See, this is what happens when you are being concise, combining the roles. But now it's time for the speech on the agenda. Distinguished Toastmaster Andrew Burns will be presenting his speech from Dynamic Leadership Lesson Level 3, Increased Knowledge Using Presentation Software in an Online Club. Let's see how that works out. Choice, Distinguished Toastmaster Andrew Burns. Distinguished Toastmaster Andrew Burns, choice.
Thank you very, very much. The important thing that I want to share with everybody is that this lecture is the most important thing that you'll hear today, because everyone trying to communicate with others will come across this question: how do I get the audience to know the points I'm talking about? How do I convey my message? And will they take my call to action? What's the best way of doing that? Many of us think that presentation software is one way to do that. The first thing I want to call to your attention is if you go to the chat and go to timestamp 1947, I've posted a picture for you to open up, because this is a big, complicated picture, and it's easier for you each to open up your own on your own screen, as opposed to me putting it on the whiteboard as we share, because it makes it easier for you to see everything, and you walk away with something very valuable as well. So the first point I want to make as a question is this: who has seen a movie in the last 6 months? And if it's in a new theater, not only do you see sound and see the big picture, sometimes in 3D, you hear sound from surround sound, speakers everywhere. In some theaters that are new, you have kinesthetic feelings, because in Star Wars, for example, we'll have the seats vibrating and moving as you're moving with the starfighters. So there are a lot of different ways that you can experience information. And when you have more information appearing as sight and sound and feeling, you will remember what you've seen more frequently. So that's one point I just wanted to talk about. But the reason that this is labeled choice is because this is really a very complicated thing. The first point I want to make is that you have things that are dynamic versus static. And what do I mean by that? Dynamic is like a movie, and static would be a picture. If you open up Zoom, you have a chance of using a background, which is a static image of whatever you want it to be. And that gives you a sense of, for example, a theme of the day. When we do fall and people have the fall pictures, or as we're coming up on Halloween and people have the Halloween pumpkins up, put you in the mood of what's going on. These are some of the values that pictures have. Now, if you look and open up this picture that I did for you, this is in a program called Mind Mapping, or AOA. And the reason that that's valuable is in a complex concept that I'm trying to talk about, which is presentation and software, and getting you to understand all the different choices that you have, it's good to be able to lay it all out in this mind mapping way. In static, you have PowerPoint, Keynote, Google Slides, Canva, and you have the ways of delivering them, including Prezi, Minicam, Ecamm, and with the tools that you have with Zoom itself. So there are a lot of different presentation softwares that you can do. And the question is, are you doing it for your presentation, or are you doing it as a creative, helping someone else's presentation? And the reason I raise that is because it's complicated. And when you're thinking about slides, there are things that you have to consider. Colors, and being Toastmasters, we have a standard brand catalog of colors and typefaces, an amount of white space around each of the pictures that we have. So these are all things to think about that make things a little bit more complicated. If you're looking at the slide, once you have your slide and content created, how are you going to deliver that? You have choices of Zoom and Skype, WebEx, MS Teams, FaceTime, LinkedIn, using Word, Pages, Google Docs. All these are presentation software, or can be used in presentation software. And when you're presenting, you can use things like OBS. You can use Zoom proper. You could use other software like and these all present your presentation to your audience. The other software underneath that I listed is Vivox and Meter, and these fall in the category of engagement software. This is to ask for interaction with the audience as you're going along in your presentation. And this allows your audience to provide feedback as you're going along. You can ask questions. Now, the Vivox software allows audiences that are very well used in a hybrid format, because you can use your phone and put in the answers, and it shows up on the screen that you're presenting to everybody else. So Vivox is particularly good if you're not doing an in-person meeting. There are also other engagement softwares that Zoom has, and there are other engagement softwares that you can use. All these things lend to your message and help you decide what the mood of the group is. Who's seen a political debate? And we're 36 days away from moving into political debates. And you've ever seen the debate and then you see the screen with the red and the blue and going up and down depending upon what the audience is seeing and hearing? Well, with engagement software, you can do the same thing on your own presentations. So presentation software is excellent to use because it helps guide the audience into the key points that you're trying to use. Since there are so many different choices that you could use, that's why I presented this in this way with a mind mapping tool, because it allows me to present all of these options, and you can look down the structure and say, oh, I understand this. It fits in here. It's presentation or creative or written word or static or dynamic, and I see what I need to do. I want to sum up with this. The key point of any communication presentation is, what is your message? What do you want the people to feel? What do you want the people to think? What do you want the people to see and hear as you're doing the presentation? Your presentation software helps you work with your delivery of message. And that's what I want to say. Back to you.
Thank you, distinguished Toastmaster Andrew Byrne, for your presentation on software. And I know that it's online presenters, so obviously we are interested in that concise reports on all the possibilities. Christine Campbell, author, motivational speaker, columnist, podcaster, activator, and entrepreneur. Wait, she's doing an icebreaker. So it's not my job to introduce her, it's going to be hers. And in 4 to 6 minutes, she will be doing just that, or soon to be one of our newest members of online presenters, will be presenting her icebreaker to introduce us to the club, introduce the club to her. Right way. Now, it will be from the presentation Mastery Path. Her speech title is Let Your Voice Be Heard. Let your voice be heard, Christine Campbell.
Welcome, fellow Toastmasters, DTM's Toastmaster of the Day, as well as those who may pop in from here and there. I'm Christine Campbell, so glad to be here. I'll tell you, we're going to have some excitement. We're going to have a concise plan of action to how you're going to get your voice heard, okay? Now, you got to bear with me because this may seem a little bit out of the ordinary. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this video, these slides of turkeys. Now, you got to bear with me, okay? So what we have is we have this wonderful, wonderful set of turkeys and Ferdinand. Now, it's turkey day. These turkeys don't know what's coming up. This is in our little backyard barnyard, okay? So now we always have one big, huge surprise turkey that's Mr. King. He beats himself on the chest and makes sure his feathers are spread out to let him know he is walking the talk. Well, guess what happened to him? This guy got in the roaster. Now he, with the feathers off and everything, 40 pounds. This is a huge roaster. I was determined to make sure that I got ahead and was going to keep that in one piece so I could have the huge presentation for all our family of 8 kids, combined family, 16 grandkids, and a great grandson, plus all their spouses and the friends that want to come along. So we needed a big turkey. Now, with that, I was so determined to have it browned. I found a way to do it. As you can see, it's all sealed in foil. Look at him, he's brown, he's juicy. I cooked him breast side down so everything was swirling with moisture. It worked. Fabulous. But what happened? What happened with that was the fact that I knew I had to do something quick because it was so big. I had a little bit of time. So I stayed up at the middle of the night, put him in for 12 hours. I never did that before, but when you have something that needs to be done, you do it. Everything works out. Your mind starts getting clear slide by slide. Now, how's that going to get to you speaking? I'm going to share something with you. 9 at night. What is that? Christine Campbell. Yes, I have a podcast. And this podcast is Your Voice Must Be Heard. Now with that, we're going to move on because 9 at night is so easy to remember. It's the number 9. It's 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The website, 9 at night. Okay, so what are you doing at 9? I'm on 9 at night. What we have there is that we have a very, very simple way that we conduct this. Here is the actual website. And 9 at night, oh my gosh, I have it Monday through Friday. Every weekday night, Monday night, that is tonight at 9 at night, Eastern Standard Time. I interview Toastmasters. Oh my heavens, how cool is that? I interview Toastmasters, 5 to 7 minute speech. You have the platform of the world through internet to be outside the Toastmaster circle and to say your speech in public. This is recorded. If you just go over here and you go to these podcast recordings right here, you will just at a click of a button see all these podcasts that I have forever that will be on here. Okay, so you see all these. Oh, look at that. Yep, lots of great stuff. So with that, we are going to just think about all of you. What do? You do impromptu. I showed you by example tonight. And just a few minutes notice, I could have my icebreaker because I needed someone extra on my 9 at night tonight. So it's give and they will give back, right? Is that how it is? So I'm counting on a leader in this group to be one of my guests at 9 at night. Now, this meeting ends at 9, so you can be on at 9:30. I have a speaker that goes the first half, then 9:30, that gives you a half-hour break. How cool is that? See, I thought of everything. Now with that, I just want to say how incredible it is to be with you and have fun with you each and every time that I get to see you on this Toastmasters meeting. And I cannot say enough how excited I am to get to know each of you. And if I ask you now, or you put in the chat, what time is the podcast? Hurry, put it in the chat. Let me know. Let me know. And what is the website? Hurry. When you scroll down that website, you can definitely see where to click on it. This is where you click, you scroll down, and it's so simple. It's not fancy. Oops, that's the wrong page. Homepage, homepage, homepage. Oh, there's the homepage. You scroll down and, oh, wow, that's where you click. It tells you the passcode and you just click on there, boom, you're in on the live show. How easy is that? Podcast recordings. And as you know, every weekday night, I have a different topic every night all the way through Friday. But Monday night, it's all about you. Get your voice to be heard. That is the Toastmaster way, right? On cue, professional when asked, what do you say? Yes. Back to you.
Thank you, Christine, for letting us know about 9 at night and for introducing yourself to us in a very unusual manner, especially with that turkey. Next to the virtual lecture. No, I'm supposed to ask the timer for the time, but he has been being concise and dropping it in the chat. And since I want to help him with time, we are just going to run on to the next segment. If he doesn't mind, just give me a thumbs up. So, concise elevator pitch. Have something to say to somebody. Your boss back you up in the corner. I'm Jamaican. I'll translate. Your boss backs you up in a corner and asks you a question quickly. What do? That's why we have table topics. It's not just for those who haven't spoken in the meeting, because sometimes we might be speaking again. Our Sergeant at Arms, Carolina Ramirez, will be taking us through this segment. And let's get ready to have some table topics.
Thank you, Joni. I'll be very concise as well. Today's table topics session will not be with questions, but together we will build a story. Each participant will have 1 minute to tell his or her part of the story. After that time, I'll interrupt the story and name the next person who will continue with the same story. Am I clear? Perfect. And the story begins like this. Today, I will tell you the story about how I learned to manage and value my time. I used to be very distracted and it was difficult for me to establish priorities. However, there was an event in my life that changed the way I see things. It all started when Jim.
Thank you, Madam Topics Master and my fellow Toastmasters. It all started when I was called on to answer this table topics question while I was in the process of putting together my evaluation for Antoinette trim. I was doing such a great job of outlining what good things that she did and making some suggestions for improvement. This was all going so well. And then I heard the question of what would you do? How would you handle this question coming from our table topics master? And I had to stop everything that I was doing and immediately change gears and start to apply in a different direction. Hopefully, I'll be able to complete doing this and then go back to doing my evaluation, but that remains to be seen. But so far, I'm pretty proud of myself because I am not a natural ambidextrous person. I cannot multitask.
Thank you, Jim. Graham.
My pleasure.
But having decided that I wasn't ambidextrous. I decided that I would in fact be amphibious, which is why I am on a cruise ship, of course. But the thing is that lives change on a dime. They change instantly. And one of the things that we learn to do when we are learning time management is how to throw out the things that are completely extemporaneous, that are completely outside what we need to know. Like, for example, the fact that I am on a cruise ship in the Coral Sea. That's not relevant to my life. And so I decided at that very moment that I was going to become efficient. I was going to become one of those people who never forgets anything, who never misses a deadline. But that still doesn't, no, I'm not sure that's working. But still, it's a moment that I'm facing in my life, and I'm going to do this. This is my story. And how do I get around it? I don't know, Carolina. It's about time that you call on somebody else to continue this story, because otherwise I'm just going to keep rambling on forever, because that is the nature of people who cannot control their time. They cannot be concise. They feel they just have to keep filling time until it is time for them to stop.
Thank you, Raham. Lou.
Boy, Madam Topics Master, I realized, one, set the timer, whether you're an evaluator, a topics contestant, or anything, make sure you are aware of what your time is. I noticed that our second speaker, Andy was our second speaker, had that really nifty timing device in the corner of his video thumbnail. I'd like to learn how to do that. I'm sure I can Google it and find out. But in the interest of being concise, perhaps Andy, our president, could put a little bit of information in the chat on how he managed to do that. I think that would be great for all of us. I have on my own to-do list a project to create some mild fitness videos. And what I mean by mild is fitness videos directed toward folks who are just getting into the exercise world, folks who may have gained a lot of weight or otherwise are unable to really move around a lot. And I thought, oh, you know what? That'd be a great device to have as part of my videos. So I think it's an excellent idea for me to now put the green light on.
Isabel.
Thank you. Speaking of time management, you know, Dr. Sunny and I have a group of young speakers. They are future Toastmasters. And for the 3.5 years we've been running the club, our young speakers always speak very concisely. Usually their table topics usually last about anywhere between 20 seconds to 1 minute. Sometimes they will ramble on a little bit longer, but never over 2 minutes. And I'm the same way, even though I've been Toastmaster for almost 8 years. I usually always run on the short side. So back to you, Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Isabel. Christine, this is your opportunity to finish the story.
It's at the end of the table topics. We had story after story, travelers, cruisers, and those in between. I'll tell you, it's a time to just enjoy, chill, smile a little bit, and just say, hey, you're all cool. It's great. Let's go get something to nibble on. Let's get something to just relax and put some music up. Yeah, turn it up a little bit, a lot, and just good chill music. Maybe a little bit of Bob Marley or, you know, something cool. Let's go to the islands. With that, I know we'll have a good time. I know feeling and hearing that breeze on the ocean waves as they slap against that beach top. Feel that moon rays and the torch lights in the hut that we're all gathered by. Our feet are in the sand. Oh, it feels good. And it's time to just know you had a good time, relaxed, and we'll live another 10 years for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Christine. Congratulations to all the participants. Everyone is qualified. And saying this, Miss Toastmaster of the Day, Joni, back to you.
Thank you, Carolina for that exciting and unusual spin on table topics. Love it. Always an innovative club online presenters. What was the point of having evaluators if we don't get evaluated, right? Well, based on the time, we're going to hope everybody is concise. And because of that, the leader of the evaluation team, Graham Khan, I hope I said that right. I'm looking at the ocean in jealousy. Names are my Achilles heel. He's off somewhere on a cruise. What can I say? Hopefully he wants to get back and we'll go through the segment quickly. Over to you, our general evaluation.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Indeed, I will try to be concise, and I would ask all of our evaluators and our functionaries to do the same. We have 3 evaluations tonight, that is formal evaluations of speakers. The first of those was Jim Barber, and Jim, I know, is prepared because we heard he was prepared before. He was telling us all about it. Jim, can you tell us or provide with us an evaluation of our first speaker tonight, Antoinette? Time of 2 to 3 minutes, please, Lou.
Yes, Mr. General Evaluator, I thought I was going to be the second evaluator this evening, so one more change to my timing, but that's all right. I can cope with this. I can do this. I am a Toastmaster. Mr. General Evaluator, my fellow Toastmasters, our guest Isabel, and especially, of course, Toastmaster Antoinette Trim. Antoinette, it is always a delight to evaluate one of your presentations. You are an accomplished presenter, and you showed that this evening. There we are. You did, I would say, pretty much everything right. You're in terms of your vocals, you're conversational. You always are. You were conversational tonight. You just simply talked to us. You didn't preach. You didn't teach. You were simply carrying on a conversation about an excuse me, about an important topic. You were talking about, do you have a bad memory? And I know I thought prior to this point that I did, but you showed us that it was not a bad memory, but simply an untrained memory. Bless you for that. I appreciate that. I can now work on my untrained memory. You have an effective use of the pause. You know when to pause and how to pause dramatically, effectively. You did that well tonight. You have a vocal variety. Your volume varies, your pacing varied. It's all added up to a conversational presentation that really worked well. As you can see here, you have good eye contact. You were doing good gestures. You can see your hand at the bottom of the screen there. This was a good presentation. There are a couple of things that I suggest that you could, not that you did wrong, but that you could maybe make it a little bit better. The first of them gets back to the gestures thing. You'll notice that the upper right hand and upper left hand corners of the visual screen are blank. They're really not being used for anything. Now, you did use that one time when you were using the American Sign Language, and that worked very nicely when you brought your hand up and we could see it up in the corner like that. I would urge you to maybe do that with your other gestures. Most of your gestures were down here. Instead, bring them up here beside your head so that you're using the visual frame a little bit more. The other suggestion is something that I actually got from Darren LaCroix one time. You opened with your presentation asking about a collective you. What do you think that how many of you, that was the question, how many of you think you have a bad memory? And you can establish a little bit better rapport with your audience if you ask us individually, do you think you have a bad memory? Not how many of you think you're having a bad memory. You're talking to one individual person that way. Just a little technique you might want to try. This was, again, an accomplished presentation. I'm going to keep it concise and stop now. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Jim, for that evaluation. I'll give you some feedback a little later if we have time, but we do have to go to our second evaluator tonight, and our second evaluator is Sunny Fridge, evaluating Andy Byrne. Sunny, all yours.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, distinguished guests, and especially DTM Andy Byrne. Your speech was about choices. It's been said, the choices you make you. Today, your goal was to make sure that we made some good choices, and you wanted us to know all about increasing our knowledge of using online software. And you talked about sharing technology used during your Toastmasters international journey. What you excelled at is you engaged the audience with questions, and you told us the importance of having online software. What you may want to work on is your handout. It was a great handout. However, when you give us a handout, it's like we're at a buffet. Now we're going for a little bit of everything. And without a digital pointer, I had a little bit of trouble following which way I needed to go and what I needed to focus on. And in my experience, I find whenever I have more words than pictures, people tend to get ahead of me. So a suggestion would be perhaps find a way to reveal the information so that you lead your journey and we don't go all over the place with it, or at least I don't. I also think one other thing you could have done, since this was about your Toastmasters journey to a bit, instead of just telling us, you could have showed us maybe one example or one favorite piece of technology that you liked during your journey. Finally, to challenge yourself. Remember, last words linger. You talked about a message. You talked about how you want people to feel and see and what you want them to take away. And you ended with, and that's what I want to say, last words linger. So continue to find that great new technology. Work on new ways to help us present, and you will have us hanging on every word because you'll be more concise. And it's all because of the choices that you make. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Sunny. Stockbridge, that was terrific, as always. Moving to our third evaluator, and that's Lou Brown. Lou, can I get somebody else to time for Lou, because it'll be difficult for him to do the timing at the same time as he's giving us an evaluation of our third speaker tonight, Christine. So, Lou Brown.
First of all, thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Yes, it was a little tough for me to multitask there. Fellow Toastmasters, and especially our newest member, Christine. I really enjoy evaluating icebreakers. I especially enjoy evaluating icebreakers of people that I do not know at all. Now, unless I'm a victim of Antoinette's short-term memory problem, I believe you and I have never met. Perhaps we have run into each other at some conference here and there. I don't know. But again, I may be a victim of that memory issue. But I enjoyed your speech very much for a variety of reasons. One, you really have the it factor, I'll call it, something that I haven't seen in any of our other members. It's like a TV presence or a celebrity presence, if you will. And as you started, I was like, oh, wow, this woman, she's probably already a DTM, and maybe you are, I don't know. Maybe been in the program for years and years and years. And I was just like, wow, how am I going to evaluate her? Because there's probably nothing that I could find for her to improve on. Let me just start with a couple of what I find to be the obvious things for myself and perhaps everyone. Your background, again, almost looks like a celebrity background. You're about to do a comedic skit or something. I don't know. Wonderful smile, excellent lighting, great framing. Your vocal skills were really good too. You were loud enough for me to hear, really clear, crisp, and concise with your vocal delivery. And again, I felt like you were doing a TV show, and now it makes sense because you have a podcast. Now, with that said, I think you also shared that your podcast is not only delivered in a audio only format, but it looks like you use Zoom. I don't know if you always use Zoom or if that's sometimes. Maybe you also post the recording in an audio format. But with that said, I noticed or observed for me that while you have great vocal variety and vocal skill, the body language could be improved. I did notice you using your hands several times that seemed to be more of this nature, like do this or something like that. I thought, you know what, perhaps using your hands with a purpose a specific purpose to highlight certain phrases or words or a message that you want to deliver would be more effective. There was a couple of moments in there where the hands really actually were distracting for me. I also wasn't sure what the turkey reference is for. And this again is maybe where my memory thing is off. I was like, oh, is that how Christine is showing us that she loves to cook fowl? Perhaps that may be the case, or turkeys are your favorite animal. I don't know. Either way, it's great that you threw it in there because you had the visual with the slide showing the turkey. You also had the visual of your website address, which I thought was really wonderful to highlight your show, and also use of the chat box for engagement purposes. So I really enjoyed the fact that you used a variety of tools to engage us, keep us engaged, and to learn more about you at the same time. Sunny, are you doing the timing, by the way? Look, there you go. Christine, it is such a pleasure to meet you, to learn more about you. I am going to check into your show because now I'd love to learn even more about you. Looking forward to your next speech and your next program. Back to you, Mr. GE.
Thank you, Lou, for that evaluation. I believe Lou was within time. The red was on for about 20 seconds. So that means that all three of our evaluators tonight are eligible to be voted upon. So David is now putting the vote for evaluator in the chat box. Please click on that. Make sure that you vote for the evaluator. I'm going to move now to the ancillary roles. We had, for example, an R counter and grammarian, Sarah Idahen. Sarah, if you can give us a concise report from the perspective of R counting and grammar use tonight.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Tonight, I thought we did an awesome job regarding our ahs and ums because I didn't hear any. All the speeches were very crisp and everything went very concisely. The word of the day was used 6 times by 6 different people. It could have been a little more, but that's what I heard. And I like 2 phrases that I heard tonight: untrained memory from Antoinette, and also she said chunking. I've heard that before, but she gave us a good definition for chunking to help us remember things. Back to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you, grammarian and R counter, Sarah. Now moving to the watcher to see how we've been looking and whether we're using the frame right and all that sort of stuff. All that sort of stuff there. I'm glad that the grammarian's already finished. Natasha.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. First, I would like to say that your water is so blue and just so beautiful and very concise. Maybe. Awesome. And I did not have an opportunity to place you on the screen here, if I may share just for a minute. Not as good as Toastmaster Barber, but I try. The best smiles, the best backgrounds. Sunny, Toastmaster Sunny, I will call her, she is Perma Smile. I do not know how she does it, but she has the best smile throughout the entire meeting. She just smiles. You're the winner there. And of course, Toastmaster Christine Campbell. Photogenic. Excellent smile, background, and for everyone out there, you clapped, I see smiles now. Oh, Sarah, there she is. She's smiling. So everyone smiled and you just looked great, perfectly centered with the exception of yours truly here with the glare. But I believe our vote master counter, David, has helped me with that. So that concludes my report. Everyone looks really great. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Natasha. Speaking of David, David, you've been watching the chat. Is there anything that we should have drawn to our attention? Not that I noticed, but chat monitor.
I don't think that there has been any crisis that has broken out in the chat. No, I would say there has not. There have been resources shared along the way, such as Andy's image was shared through the chat. It's a pity when you click on it, it doesn't actually just show you the image. You have to download it first in order to see what he's talking about. So that does make it a little bit awkward. But yeah, folks behaved themselves in the chat this evening. And
fabulous. Thank you for that. One of the things I like about our use of the chat in this club is that we do use it to pass on useful information, but we don't chat outside that when the presenters are presenting, which can be a little distracting sometimes. And so I like the professionalism of the way that we use this chat here. And thank you, David, for keeping an eye on that. Thank you also for being our vote counter. If you haven't already voted for best speaker, best evaluator, best table topic, please do so, because David needs now to collate those results and give them to our Toastmaster a little later. Time now for my general evaluation. First, I'm going to evaluate the evaluators themselves. Jim Barber's evaluation I thought was warm and effusive and pointed quite well to the praise that he was giving. Like, for example, the use of the visuals, which we saw from Antoinette. One observation, though, that I would make, not just for Jim, but for everybody, is when you're making suggestions, don't just say what you think we should do to improve, but why we should do to improve it. For example, Jim spoke about all of this blank space, but didn't say why it's important that we use that blank space. But I thought there were some really great suggestions from Jim, so thank you for those. Sunny, tonight, began with a phrase that I really enjoyed. It felt like now I'm at a buffet. I'm not following what's happening here because I get too much choice. And that analysis paralysis is I know exactly of what you're speaking. So I really enjoyed, that was a very pithy observation that she made. Something that Sunny skirted around, and at least she did skirt around it, whereas none of our other evaluators did, was the purpose of this specific project. One of the things I like to see in an evaluation, particularly in a club as advanced as this one, is for us to be drawing attention to what the speaker is hoping to achieve, the specific objectives of the project. And while Sunny referred to, in general terms, the use of visual support material and of presentation software, she might have added a line in there from the evaluation asked Andy specifically to do this. Now, do I believe that he met that objective? Yes, I do. Or perhaps it wasn't as successful. So remember the objectives of each assignment. But I'm sure Andy got great value out of the observations which were made by Sunny, and thank you for those. And Lou Brown, Lou gave great praise for presentations, for example, speaking about the background vocals, the use of the background material. Lou has a tendency to ramble a bit before getting to the point. And it was about 40 seconds into the evaluation before we actually got to some observations rather than observations about observations. So just drawing it to your attention, Lou, you know that you probably do this. But I enjoyed the observations that you did make, and I particularly enjoyed, and it's a pity that Christine has had to leave us, because I particularly enjoyed your observation that there appeared to be a disconnect between the turkey and then the main body of her presentation. It was almost like two separate speeches there. I didn't quite get the connection. Obviously you didn't. Perhaps other members did. I don't know. But as an evaluator, that's the sort of thing that we should be looking for. Looking at the general business, I thought the business session was a bit disorganized, and it actually took almost 13 minutes for us to do something that should have taken about 4. So that's because nobody quite knew who was doing what at the beginning. With a business session, you really do need to nail down what's going to happen before the meeting gets underway. Toastmaster Jody, I thought an excellent job of being Toastmaster tonight. Some really, really good humor to link everything together. Really well done on that. And the topics, Carolina, the running story is always a risk that we're just going to go completely off the rails, which we did tonight, but I enjoyed it. And I thank you for giving us something different with table topics this evening. That's my general evaluation. And it's time now to hand control back to the Toastmaster of the evening to find out who won the vote and all those sorts of things.
All right. should I announce the winners?
Well, I don't know. Do you want to announce the winners? Ask the Toastmaster of the day. It's her role.
I would like for David to announce the winners. Yes, that would be great.
All right. Feel free to unmute, do some kind of drum roll kind of activity as best we can here, and applaud for the winners as they are announced. So drum roll please, and best speaker, Christine Campbell. So sad she's not here to hear it, but we will communicate with her afterwards. Best table topics, Isabel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
There are actually some ties in here, but David broke the ties because that's a tiebreaker thing to do. And best evaluator, Sunny Fridge. All right. Thank you, everyone, for making us a competitive evening.
Thank you, our vote council. An important tip when it comes to time management: delegate, delegate, delegate. I mean, if after all, if I had to make those certificates, we will be here all night. And I'm happy to say I will be turning over to our president shortly, which should make us be able to end on time. Back to you, President.
Thank you for the wonderful job that you've done. David put into the chat a link to get to next week's meeting. It would be wonderful in the next 3 minutes if we have the key roles of Toastmaster of the Day, Journal Evaluator, Table Topics, speakers and evaluators identify themselves so that we know where we are going next week.
Yeah,
And
we currently do not